How is it going, Bears fans? Welcome back to another episode of Beared Down Uncut, where we talk everything Bears every day of the week. Today we're going to be breaking down the NFL Top 100 list of 2020. Does Allen Robinson deserve a higher ranking? How about Khalil Mack? And which other Bears players were snubbed from the list? Today we're going to be breaking that all down for you in episode number 63 of Uncut. Welcome back to the show, guys. I'm your host, Chris Maltby. Today, I'm joined with my co-hosts, Parth and Jaylen McClinton. How's it going, guys?
Doing pretty good. I think summer's coming to an end. I think we all move. Me and Chris go to college pretty soon, so I'm excited for that. It's my freshman year, so it'll be fun.
I'm doing great. First episode back in Illinois for me in a long time, so just happy to be back home.
Absolutely. 34 days until Bears football. I would like to say a couple of things before we get this one started. First off, we're trying to get to 2,000 subscribers by the start of the season. We've got about a month. So if you are new to the channel, do us a favor and click that red button to subscribe. Also, do us a favor and click the bell for notifications whenever we post. And if you are returning to the channel, do us a favor and drop a like on this video. Also, the second announcement I have, it's been about 5 weeks since we've actually posted an episode of the Beared Down podcast. Normally, that's our thing. Uncut's a brand new series on this channel that just started a couple months ago. Obviously, it's taken off. But that being said, the podcast will come back soon when the season rolls around. We're going to be getting back into the swing of things with Meet the Opponents, a couple key matchups, our pregame show, and we're going to be consistent with it this year because if you've been with us for the long run, we've definitely been spotty with it in the past, but we're really excited to finally cover a full Bears season, start to finish, hoping that it obviously happens. So let's hop right into this one. The NFL Top 100 list. 2 Bears made the list. I said it earlier, Allen Robinson and Khalil Mack. Before we get into this one, I want to ask you guys, Parth and Jaylen, there's a lot of criticism for this list. A lot of players that were too high, a lot of players that were too low. Not many players where they probably should be. So I want to ask you guys, what's your impression of this list?
It's terrible. Only 2 Bears players. I could name at least 1 or 2, at least 3 or 4 more that deserved it, and a couple of free agents that we signed that should be on the list as well. It's a players-made list, so you expect it to be kind of iffy and trash and favoring a lot of their buddies and stuff. But still, how can you leave off someone like Eddie Jackson or Kyle Fuller? But that's just my thought.
Same here. I take the list with a grain of salt. Only really watch it because I like the entertaining clips they do with the behind the scenes and stuff like that. But the list in general, yeah, like Parth said, it's terrible. I expected Bojack to be on there as well as Kyle Fuller, and maybe Allen Robinson could have been higher. But yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, you guys really hit it on the head. Jaylen had a good point. I like that players break down film when it comes to this stuff. But that being said, it's a players-only list. I think you could probably throw some media in there as well. But that being said, let's break it down. Starting at number 93, we've got Allen Robinson, wide receiver for the Chicago Bears. Obviously, Allen Robinson came to the Bears in 2018 and has practically been the best player on offense ever since, really breaking out in 2019 after coming from Jacksonville after he tore his ACL. Really an inspirational comeback for him. 1,147 receiving yards for him and 7 touchdowns on 98 receptions in 2019. I think he's one of the most underrated wide receivers in the league. Just looking at a couple of the wide receivers above him before we discuss whether or not this is right positioning for Allen Robinson. Cooper Kupp comes in at number 89. The one that has drawn a lot of criticism from Bears fans is DK Metcalf at 81. And then the next wide receiver is Keenan Allen at 77, which I think honestly might be a little bit low for Keenan Allen. And then Larry Fitzgerald at 69. Not too sure about that one. And the next one, Tyler Lockett at 65. Jarvis Landry at 61. Someone who actually had really, really similar stats to Allen Robinson in 2019. So I want to ask you first, Parth. Obviously Allen Robinson, we know he's really underrated, not only by the media, but by opposing teams. And I'm pretty sure we all know that with good quarterback play, Allen Robinson is an elite wide receiver 1 in this league. So I want to ask you, what do you think about Robinson falling in here at 93?
it's disrespectful. I'll put that out there for sure. I think Allen Robinson is I'd say like a top 75 player at bare minimum. Like you said, Jarvis Landry was, I think, 61, and he had similar statistics to Allen Robinson. So if someone like Allen Robinson can put up numbers like that with Trubisky and Chase Daniel under center, I mean, he would look much better if you had another quarterback. I mean, Baker Mayfield isn't as good as, so I feel bad for Jarvis there too. But I think if we look at it compared to DK Metcalf, Cooper Kupp, he's definitely better than those two. And don't get me started on Larry Fitzgerald. I mean, he's a great player. He's a legend. But he's definitely not what he was before. So putting him above Allen Robinson is also disrespectful too.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is just more motivation for Allen Robinson. Yeah. I mean, you look at who's 3 players above him, and obviously you can't compare from one position to another, but the Rookie of the Year, Kyler Murray, comes in above Allen Robinson. After Allen Robinson had a pretty good year, Josh Allen also up there. But that being said, I do think it's a bit low for Robinson. Do I think he should have been that much higher? Not essentially. Maybe in the low 70s, high 80s. I think he should be around where Metcalf is at 81. But that being said, still a really good honor for Robinson to get on this list. Obviously, it shows that other players are recognizing what he's able to do. We've had a ton of guests on the show talk about how special he is. I think we can all remember when Prince Amukamara came on and talked about how he's one of the top 5 wide receivers he's ever had to guard, which is incredibly high praise with all the receivers that Prince has had to guard since coming into the league in 2011. So, Jaylen, I want to ask you, what do you think about this 93rd ranked spot for Allen Robinson?
Like both of you guys said, I feel like he should have been way higher than 93. DK Metcalf, who was a rookie this season, who had worse stats than Allen Robinson did, and he's 12 spots higher. I don't like that at all. That's just about it for me. It's a lot of other receivers that I don't feel like that should have been higher than A-Rob. But like I said, I barely look at this list as like something that you should really rely on as top 100 players at all.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Keenan Allen's stats even, who fell in there at 77, and I think he was incredible in 2019. I mean, not getting off focus of the Bears, but Keenan Allen with 1,200 receiving yards on 104 catches and 6 touchdowns. I think, there's a lot of controversial spots on this list. But that being said, we're going to head up the list to the former 2019, who landed on the 2019 list at number 3 overall, Khalil Mack, coming in at number 19 on the 2020 list. You know what? Honestly, if I'm speaking personally, I can understand this one. Mack still had a good year in 2019 with 8.5 sacks, 47 tackles. But that being said, we all know when Akeem Hicks went down, it really slowed down for Mack. And this list should be a reflection on how players played in the years past. If it was a list on the players that are most dangerous or the best in the league heading into 2020, I would say Mack has to be higher. I think 19, I would have liked maybe top 15. But that being said, I think 19 is a good spot for Mack. But I mean, obviously, I think he's gonna get back up into the top 10 hopefully after this year. Looking at a couple of the higher players before I pass it on to my co-hosts, Aaron Donald, obviously, very well-respected player, coming in at number 3. Looking at some other defensive linemen and defensive players, Stephon Gilmore at number 9. What do we got? Bobby Wagner at 13. Chandler Jones at 15. Very well-deserved for him. He had a great year. Nick Bosa at 17, and then Mack will come in there at 19. Parth, I'm going to pass it to you. What do you think? I think this is a little bit more fair of a rating for Mack. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think Mack definitely had a down year, you could say, statistically. I mean, he was still a big part of this defense, and despite being triple teamed, he put up 8 sacks and 8.5 sacks. So he was still great for the team. The only thing I don't like about it is seeing Nick Bosa above him. I think Nick Bosa was incredible as a rookie, but he also had an incredible defensive line to help him out. I mean, DeForest Buckner, was it Eric Armstead, something like that. So, I mean, he's got all those studs on his D-line side. I don't like Nick Bosa above Mack, but yeah, Mack definitely deserves to be a top 20 player, and hopefully he can get back to being top 10 and maybe even top 5 like 2018.
I mean, if you look at some stuff that was said this offseason, I mean, Bucky Brooks was one that said that Khalil Mack isn't a top 3 pass rusher. And he had guys like TJ Watt up there above him. And if you look at what the players voted, guys that Bucky Brooks had ahead of Mack, like Shaquille Barrett and T.J. Watt, both fall below Mack on the list. So clearly shows that there's still a great amount of respect for Mack within this league, and that's not going to change anytime soon. And he's got the help that he needs in Chicago to perform this year with Robert Quinn and a healthy Akeem Hicks. Jaylen, you think this is a fair spot for Mack?
Yeah, Mack didn't have over 10 sacks, and I think that broke a 4-year record of him like having consecutively over 10 sacks. So I'll take 19. I feel like he could have been also way higher, but I'm not complaining about 19 at all, especially with him having a down season compared to last year.
Absolutely. So finally, one more thing before we close this one off. Obviously, we all think that there's a couple Bears that were maybe snubbed from this list. Notably, Eddie Jackson, Kyle Fuller, and maybe even Robert Quinn with 11.5 sacks in 2019. So I want to ask you, out of those three guys, which one were you most surprised to not see on the list? Parth, we'll start with you.
I'm going to go with Robert Quinn. 11.5 sacks is probably top 5, top 10 in the league. So to see him not make the list was surprising, to say the least. And seeing Eddie Jackson and Kyle Fuller on the list doesn't surprise me. And the Bears get underrated a lot. But a guy who was on the Cowboys last year, a team that gets a lot of attention from the media and the players, to see Robert Quinn not on the list definitely surprised me. I definitely think he's a top 100 player, if not a top 75 player, top 50 player. Guys like Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith with the Packers, who had similar stats to Robert Quinn, were top 50 players. So I think Robert Quinn definitely went underappreciated. I think on the Bears, he'll definitely put up the same amount of numbers and get the appreciation he deserves.
Yeah, I'm going to switch it up a little bit, and this one might be a little bit controversial because I know there's a little bit of Kyle Fuller slander every once in a while. But I'm going to go with him. I think he should have slipped onto this list, and I was surprised not to see Fuller there. Fuller had a career high in tackles in 2019 with 82, 3 interceptions. Probably should have been somewhere around 10. He probably drops the most in the league. But that being said, he's a cornerback for a reason. Fuller's a player who's become well-respected in the league throughout his time playing here. It's going to be tough covering number one wide receivers week after week after week. And I think he did a pretty good job. I'm not going to break it down game by game and say he was absolutely incredible because obviously, he did have a little bit better of a year with 7 interceptions in 2018. But that being said, Fuller, another player who I expect to be able to get back on this list. He's got help now. Jaylen Johnson's there. We've talked about this Bears front seven forever. Fuller's going to have all the opportunity in the world if he can do his part in Chicago. I want to ask you, Jaylen, 3 defensive studs on the Bears that arguably should have made this list that didn't. Robert Quinn, Eddie Jackson, and Kyle Fuller. Which one were you most surprised to not see on this list?
I'm surprised Bojack didn't make the list at all. Once we got into around like 50 and I see the players that were like being named, I knew he wasn't going to be named on the list this year. He didn't have the best season compared to last season where he had over 6 interceptions, returned 3 touchdowns, and made All-Pro and stuff like that. He was still a Pro Bowler this season. He only had 2 interceptions, but both those 2 interceptions were to help us win games against the Lions and the Vikings in the last week of the season. He didn't have any touchdowns, but people know that if he gets the ball in his hands, that more than likely he's probably going to return it for a touchdown or somewhere close to a touchdown. Eddie Jackson is still one of the best safeties in this league. He's still top 5 in my opinion. And the fact that you've seen safeties over him that made the list and he didn't, I was completely shocked. So I'm definitely surprised Bojack didn't make the list at all.
I mean, Eddie Jackson getting a very well-deserved 4-year, $58 million extension in Chicago. I'm very glad he's in Chicago, but that being said, let's just hope that there's some more Bears, especially on the defensive side of the ball, on this list after the 2020 season. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to episode number 63 of Uncut. If you want more content from us, we're going to be ramping it up again soon on our website, beareddown.com, with some columns, articles, and blogs covering everything that we possibly can, all the information that we can get out of training camp. If you want to find the podcast on Instagram or Twitter, you can find us at Beared Down, and you can also find the links to all of our social media fan pages on Instagram down in the description. Those are some great follows as well. Parth Shaw, Jaylen McClinton. Parth said it in the beginning of this episode, we're about to go back to school, and you know what that means. Football season's right around the corner, and things are about to ramp up. How excited are you guys for this season?
I'm hoping it all works out. Seeing the NBA and NHL do its thing, it looks amazing. I think baseball's having a little difficulties with the Cardinals, and Marlins having their outbreaks. So hopefully there's no outbreaks in the NFL. It's a smooth sailing season. I think the Bears can be really good this year. I had a little Twitter chat with Owen Kreutz, and he does not believe the season's going to happen, but hopefully it happens. I think the Bears can be special this year.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's expecting fans at this point. So at this point, I mean, I don't know if it's possible with all the NFL personnel, but it seems like what the NBA is doing right with the bubble. So, I mean, that's an option. But that being said, yeah, I mean, I hope the season happens and everyone's underrating the Bears. And when that happened in 2018, they definitely surprised some people. So I'm hoping we can replicate that this year. Jaylen McClinton, any last words, buddy?
Football season is over 30 days away, so
a month, baby.
I can't wait. I'm just thankful I'm gonna be at home to watch football compared to Arizona. So I don't like watching the Cardinals. Cardinals are, even though they would probably be exciting this year, I want to watch my Bears, and I'm just happy that I get to watch my Bears and come from my own home. Football season is back. Let's go, baby.
Absolutely. Bears fans, thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to keep getting as much content out to you guys as possible. It's a bit of a dry time right now. Obviously, training camp's going on, but there's no media there. It's a little bit of a confusing situation, but that being said, we're still going to work hard to get the best fans in the world the content they deserve. Thank you so much for tuning in. Once again, I am your host, Chris Maltby. Bears fans, do us a favor, stay safe, and as always, bear down. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.